Hey folks, I'm cold. You know, I thought moving to a subtropical island would mean fair weather all year round, but apparently it still gets chilly in the winter. Easy solution, right? Just put on a sweater. Well, I'm a teacher, so I can't exactly show up to class looking like a bum. But there's an easy solution for that. All I need to do is find a way to take this professional looking but not at all cozy windbreaker and combine it with this unprofessional looking but very warm sweatshirt. Piece of cake, right? So here's my thought. What the heck is... Ugh. Sorry about that, folks. So here's my thought process. I could just cut it up the middle and sew it directly onto the jacket, but that sounds like a lot of work. Plus, if I did that, I couldn't take it apart to wash it, or if I just want to wear the light windbreaker only. So instead, I'm planning on sewing buttons to the inside of the jacket and putting buttonholes in the sweatshirt for ease of assembly and disassembly. I only have 6 though, so I'm going to have to be strategic. I think if I sew them here, 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 and here, it'll minimize the amount of floppage that could potentially happen. Okay, for this project, I'm going to need my sweatshirt, the jacket, buttons, scissors, sewing needles, and, of course, some thread. Okay, so first things first, I think we should just cut this sweatshirt right up the middle. If you have chalk, it's a great way to draw guidelines on your fabric. It's something that will easily wash out later. But I don't have any chalk, and I think it'll be fine if I just use this pen. So I'm just going to use this pen and this tape measure to draw some guidelines in the exact center of the sweatshirt. And with that done, it's time to cut. Now, I would definitely recommend getting a nice pair of fabric scissors. These are specially made to be extra sharp, and you should absolutely not use them for anything else. It will make your life a whole lot easier if you have fabric scissors. And that's how easy you can cut through fabric if you have the right scissors. Now, one important piece of advice I always have is to test things out as you go. You don't want to commit and do something like sew a button onto a jacket, find out it's in the completely wrong place, and then have to restart. For example, if you look here, this is the tallest point before the hood starts. But if I wear them together, the highest point before the hood on the jacket does not match up with the highest point on the sweatshirt. So if you match them up, I should be sewing my button right here, not right up here. Now, even if you've never even touched a sewing needle in your life, fear not, because I will do a step-by-step process on exactly how this will work. So first things first, we're going to want to thread the needle, which is notoriously a hard thing to do. So first, we're going to get our length of thread. This is probably more than enough, but it's always better to get more than you need and cut off the extra than find out that you need more and then you have to start all over again. Now for this, I'd advise you use a needle with a much bigger eye here, but I just want to show you how useful this little tool is here. This is called a needle threader, and you don't need one, but it is very helpful. What it does is, well, I'll show you. First, what you do is you just stick the wire part into the needle. And so now you can see the needle is threaded on here, right there. And then all you do is you put the end of the thread through the big loop, and then you pull the needle off, and it forces the thread through the needle. Now, if you don't have a needle threader, of course, it helps to use a needle with a bigger eye, but here's a couple tricks to help make your life easier when you're trying to thread a needle like this without a needle threader. Now, I've exacerbated the problem here, but on a thread that's been broken instead of cut like this, you can kind of see it has split ends, and these split ends make it extremely hard to thread a needle. So, one way to fix this, of course, is to take our very sharp sewing scissors, our fabric scissors, and just cut it off, and then we have a nice clean end. Or if the problem isn't as pronounced, you can always do this to make sure everything is together. Now, once you have your nice and clean end, you're just going to try to poke it right through. Whoop. Now, sometimes it can be frustrating because little fibers can block its entry. You'll see what I mean if you sew enough. Now, be extra careful that this does not fall off, because if it does, you have to redo it. Now, we're not quite ready to start sewing yet, because if you see this, If I poke my needle through the fabric, it goes right through, and then it just goes all the way through. There's nothing stopping it from going all the way through, so we have to tie a knot. Now, here's how I do it. So what you're going to want to do is make a loop and make it so that the end of the tail is inside the loop like this. So it's going to be inside. And then what you're going to do is you're going to twirl it so that the tail goes around and around and around as many times as you can. And then what that's going to do is going to make tons of overhand knots. And when you pull it tight, if you've done it right, it should make a really thick, really messy knot. See how big that knot is comparatively? And you want it to be all bunched up because you want this knot to be as thick as possible. Okay, now for the fun part. We're going to actually start sewing the button on. Now, I have trouble lining all of the holes up, so I'm going to try something new here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try super gluing the center in place so that it doesn't shift around on me while I'm trying to sew it onto the jacket. So we're just going to put the tiniest dab on there, and then I'm just going to glue that right here. Now with that held there, it should be much easier to sew it on without getting all messy. And you'll see what I mean in a bit. So what we want to do is we'll start by poking a hole through here. And you always, always, always want to start from the inside of the fabric. So this is the part of the fabric that will be like touching your skin. You want to start from the inside because you have this ugly tail on the end. And you want that to be not visible. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come out the back, or out the front as it were, and we're going to come out this hole right here. So there we go. We come out that hole. And then we'll pull that tight. Boom. And then we're going to go in this hole, and we're just going to work our way around. Now you can crisscross if you want. You can go the other way around. It doesn't really matter as long as you have a regular pattern of going out and in. So I'm just going counterclockwise here from the original perspective. And then this is our original hole, and we're going out, and we're doing the same thing. So what we're going to do is, okay, so this is a good learning opportunity. I messed up. This was the original place the thread came out. This was where I came out because I let the fabric bunch up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unthread the needle, and I'm going to use it to actually pull that back through. And then I'm just going to rethread that needle, like so. I'm going to make sure it's nice and tight on there this time. And then I'm going to go back through. And now you can see it's coming out much, much closer to the original out hole. And then so what you want to do is you want to go like right back in where that next hole was. Boop. Right in. Whoop. What are we doing? What are we doing? Right back in. And out. Be careful not to poke yourself. And then in the next one. And it should come out about the same place. And then you see there, we're starting to make this regular pattern. And you keep doing that, going back in the same hole. And then out the original one. And then just keep doing that. Now, as a general rule, the more times you go in and out, the stronger it gets. But in the effort of time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to tie this off. So again, you typically want to do this on the inside of whatever. So I'm going to do it on the inside of the button. If the button is on the outside of the jacket, you might not want to do it on this side, but let me show you how to tie it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here. I'm not going to go through the fabric though. So what I've done is I've kept it on the inside of the jacket, but I haven't threaded it through. So what I'm going to do is, you can see that I'm going to go under the threads. So I'm staying on this side of the jacket the whole time. And I'm just going to do that a couple times. Just going to thread that through right there. I'm going to pull it nice and tight. No, not too tight. I don't want to snap my threads. Pull that nice and tight. And then what I can do is give this little snip. And give that ugly tail a little snip too. And then there we go. So there we go. Now this not coming off anytime soon. Now, I'm going to be honest, this could be a little prettier. If you focus more on always coming out and always going into the same hole, it will look a lot nicer. But for my purposes, this is just fine. All right, and now for the next fun part, sew in all 5 other buttons. Okay, folks, it seems we've run into a problem. So here's the problem at hand. I want to sew a button right here. However, I would have to do it through the mesh. Now, normally that would be fine, but the problem is this pocket here is connected. And because it's connected, when you put your hand in through here, through this area, you can't put your hand then in the warm part of the actual sweatshirt. So I'm thinking in order to remedy this, if I just cut along here to free up my hands, then I can sew a button underneath and it'll be no problem. Okay, so without further ado, oh God. I cut right through the fabric. God dang it. So now, if I were to put my hand in my pocket, I could go through, but the problem is my hand goes all the way through. So what we need to do is we need to sew along this line and then down all the way here to join that back together so I can keep my jacket on my windbreaker. And now we're going to do some actual sewing. And sewing at its heart is just a series of attaching anchor points together. And here's what I mean by that. Right here we have 2 pieces of fabric and we want to anchor them together. Now, in order to create those anchor points, what I can do is I can stick a needle through it with thread. So let's just say right here, I want to stick my needle through there. Remember, I always keep the knot tail end on the inside, and I go through. I got a long piece here. So I go through, and then I want to come back around and I want to anchor it to the other piece of fabric. So then I go back again. Boom. And now, in that spot, those 2 pieces of fabric are anchored together. And you can't really see it all that well because, well, it's a big old mess of that knot. But if I keep doing that over and over and over, eventually I will have tied these 2 pieces of fabric completely together. And you will not be able to separate them. Okay, and to finish this up, I'm just going to go around and around and around on this exact same spot, which will really make sure that it will not come loose no matter how hard you tug. So I'll just cut this last bit off. And there we go. We have a pocket that now when we stick our hand back in it, it won't go through. Quite honestly, I don't actually want to sew another button on, so let's just skip that part, okay? Oh, that's pretty good. Not too shabby. Okay, now that that's all finished, the only thing I have left to do is cut the buttonholes on the sweatshirt. Like I said before, if you want to get good measurements, it's best to do it while you're wearing the thing. So now that I'm wearing the thing, I think I'll use my trusty pen to just label exactly where on the sweatshirt that the button should line up, as well as drawing the line that I need to cut out. And I think it'd be best to draw the line the exact diameter of the button. So finally, I just need to find and cut out all the little slits. Pro tip, use the base of the scissors and not the tip when cutting. You get a lot more leverage, and it's usually much easier to cut that way. And that should be it. Time for the big reveal. So yeah, overall, I think this was a smashing success. It's functional, it's warm. I think this is professional enough for me to wear in the workplace. And I'm sure it'll keep me warm through the winter months, even though it's already January. And all silliness aside, I know most of you are probably not going to want to make your own fleece-lined jacket. You're probably just going to go buy your own if you need one. But I genuinely believe that sewing is an invaluable skill, and I know in my life it has come in handy a countless number of times. And that's it for this week, folks. Of course, if you want to check out my other social media, you can do so right here. And I'll see you next week. Stay cozy. Bye.